the champion of the world, Fireball.
Hello everyone, today I will be bringing you my favorite top tier plundering deck. It is a high skill cap deck, but do not let that intimidate you, as it is also a lot of fun to play, so you simply will play it enough to learn how to play it as well. Because it is a plundering deck, it will help you learn many different effects of different cards along the way, which then later will allow you to build another type of decks much more comfortably and allow you to get to a higher rank easier with those decks. So without further ado, let's get into it. The general idea behind this deck is to outlast your opponent while at the same time gathering as much value as possible out of the pillages and the draw from the parchment barrages, the pillaging princes, the reiterations, and many different cards that allow you to draw or increase the value out of your cards to the maximum. This deck does have few legendary cards in it, like King Ultron or Spellbook Forgery, as well as a Prince Garen. However, they are not necessary in this deck. You could replace the book with another spell or the king. However, the king would be one of the cards that would preferably put in the deck, as he is a noble and this is a noble oriented deck. We also have Basmith, Reformed Devil, which is an absolutely amazing card in this deck. I would put it in no matter what, as behind a taunt it will allow you to draw so many cards that it would simply be a shame to miss out on the opportunity. So except for those 4 cards, most of the cards in this deck are quite common, so most of people should be able to build this deck comfortably. Maybe few cards could be changed and moved around to help if some of the cards are missing in your book. For those who simply want to copy the deck and do not need the explanation on how to use it, I will simply post all the cards on the screen right now, and you can pause the video and use them accordingly. So now that you have the deck, I will play some games and give a running commentary as well as explain how the deck works. As I mentioned before, this deck is very difficult to play. It has a lot of luck related mechanics in it, with Jagger the copy mage copying a random card in your hand, as well as, if coined, reducing its mana cost by 2. As well as the pillaging system, which allows you to choose 1 card out of 3 that is randomly chosen from all the cards in the game. So it allows you for an infinite possibility during your game. It might also result in you having a lot of useless cards in your hand. However, this deck is powerful enough to not rely on any plundering, as I've proven in the game that I was playing the entire time I was talking, as I have not plundered anything specifically strong during that game, and my opponent have had a very powerful starting hand which allowed him to pull out a 9 mana golem, the Avatar of Peace, on turn 6. However, with use of Wealth Pommel and Reiteration, I have destroyed his strongest minions on the board, and then stole his Avatar of Peace with a Grave Robber, which in this case was enough for me to back the win by destroying my opponent's will to play the game. This deck has a lot of potential for both funny and unlucky situations where, although I have absolutely no Zealous Archivist in my deck, I managed to procure 4 of them during the game with a dummy by using a copy mage and a Grave Robber after plundering one of the Zealous Archivists. And just to prove that this deck is top tier worthy, I will show you guys a game of me fighting a top 8th player. This gameplay is going to be heavily edited, as it was a very long game, as it's to be expected while fighting a top tier player. He is also using a deck that has significant advantage against our deck, as it ramps up in power the longer the game goes on, and our job is to prolong the game while getting as much value out of plunders as possible. The deck my opponent is playing is a Merc Band deck with a lot of board clear and immunity to damage with a filibuster. Throughout the game he has cleared the board with a final spell on multiple occasions, clearing out a lot of my minions. However, I got lucky with one of my copy mages, allowing me to copy a king. He has quickly removed the kings after I put them down, however I knew that I would get them back after using Potion of Wealth. I got lucky yet again by picking up another spellbook forgery, however I've never ended up using it during the match. Here he already started putting down Merc Bands, increasing the damage and health, which puts clock on me, as if I do not wrap up the game soon, they will be too big for me to remove. Right now things are not looking very well for me, as my opponent has a lot of health and I have very few minions on the board, so I have to quickly add up minions to the board, which is what I'm going to be doing now. I successfully managed to get in a bit of damage before my opponent started using filibusters to prevent me from doing more damage. This would be the turning point of the game, as I managed to successfully delete his last filibuster with my breach of terms, allowing me to win the game in the next turn. Here he shows that he has a final spell in his hand, which would mean that he would clear out the entire board if the filibuster would have succeeded. In this last clip I will show that you do not have to get lucky, as my starting hand was very bad and my opponent is a master level, playing his own version of a plundering deck that he was working on for some time. However, we are playing the best plundering deck in the game as of right now, so unless we get very unlucky or play incorrectly, we should be able to win without much trouble. My opponent during this match is playing a Rush Plunder deck, which means that he got pretty lucky early game with 3 pickpockets and a Farmer's Hands early game. However, our deck has a lot of removal, heals and minions in it, so it is quite good against rush decks. The game was still very intense with a lot of back and forth, with us clearing each other's minions very easily and putting down more, while at the same time keeping a good number of cards in our hands. Only top tier decks are capable of doing all 3 of those things at the same time for this long. Right here I successfully managed to copy with my copy mages multiple grave robbers, which then allowed me to steal my opponent's grave robber and allowed me to stay on the board for longer. Both of us are starting to run out of cards, however because I just managed to remove my opponent's pillaging princes, I have an advantage, as I can steal one of the pillaging princes with the grave robber in my hand, and together with Baron Solicitate and a pillaging prince I can fill up my hand again with more cards. Now that my opponent ran out of cards, it's just a matter of time before we win. However, my opponent does have few tricks up his sleeve, so we have to stay careful and heal up a little bit with the alchemy potion. Thanks to the dagger soup players, my opponent is constantly summoning 2 damage and 2 HP mercenaries. However, because they are such a small creatures, they do not bother me too much. Especially since every single turn I am gaining more creatures that could help me block them. Thanks to the pillaging prince. I got some more useful spells out of my spell forgery. Fireball here is very big. I will fast forward a little bit as nothing particularly interesting happens. My opponent's Merc strat is in full effect, constantly summoning full board of Mercs. This would be very powerful against most decks, however our deck has a high sustain and removal, as well as many minions that can constantly be replenished with plunder. Here we managed to steal the king from our opponent thanks to loot the body that we put on our elemental prior to this clip. It appears it caused a lot of emotional damage to our opponent, so we will do it again with his fireball. Then immediately use it to tear down his defenses and commence mercy killing, as that's what good Samaritans do. He however chooses not to go down without a fight, so we use his king against him and steal one last card. His deck is almost spent, so we set him down to 1 HP and let him die to mana burn. If I had to name this deck, I would call it a Soul Crusher, as it leaves your opponent feeling empty inside. Thank you for watching, please like and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this.